Good morning, my loves. How are you? Okay, I am doing wonderful. It's been kind of a crazy morning, so I am leaving tomorrow for work overnight and trying to get all kinds of stuff done before I do that, and it's just not going well. So I'm going to sneak in here, do this quick video, and talk about The Evil Lives Here Season 1, Episode 6, Home Sweet Nightmare. So we'll just get right to it. So as always, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and share if so, and hit that subscribe button. This is gonna be a fun video. I can't even speak. Love to have you around, have these conversations with you. As always, again, everything I use will be posted in the links below, and if you have any questions about it or need a link to the certain product, I'll be glad to help. Okay. Season 1, Episode 6, Home Sweet Nightmare. So first of all, obviously, I'm going to do another trigger warning. I shouldn't say obviously because some of these don't require trigger warnings, but I've noticed that as we go, obviously every one of them that I've seen so far involves murder. But this one involves domestic abuse, and I just want to make sure that everybody is comfortable and in a safe headspace. So if this will trigger you, or if you do not want to hear, please feel free. Jump out of here. I hope you can continue to follow me and check out my videos, and hopefully we'll have one that doesn't include domestic abuse. Unfortunately, the majority of them at this point do. So the video starts. Pretty typically, you see the production crew and light people and producers, everybody involved, miking up and setting up this lady who we know will be the narrator of the show. A narrator is probably a good word. She's going to be the one that leads us through and tells us her story. So she starts saying that she had hoped they would have a perfect family. That, but there were times when he was two different people. So apparently we're learning that this is her husband. He, when he was good, he was the sweetest, kindest, caring man you'd ever see. When he was bad, she said it was pretty awful, and they were pretty scared of him. She was scared of him. She said she should have been scareder than she was, right? Like, she knew she was scared, but should have been scareder. I don't know. How do you know that going in, right? So then we see pictures of this guy, okay? No names are given. We don't know her name. We don't know his name, but we're seeing family pictures. So her and him, and it looks like, what was it? Some children. I think we saw one with 2 children, one with newborn. So at this point, we know there's children. We don't know yet anything about said children. So then the little TV thing that comes up, or not TV thing, but the little information screen comes up and tells us this information. That this is the first time that Sheila Janitolo had spoken publicly about her ex-husband, Jim Cruz Jr., and his crime. Okay, so now we have names. And sometimes we don't get names for a while. So this show's kind of, you either get names and no locations, or you get locations and no names, or you don't get anything. It kind of just keeps you wondering. I guess the fact is they want to keep baiting you along. So, and they do a really good job of it. So we go back to Sheila, who is sorting through a box of old pictures of Jim, and we learn that he was happy at first, and you see him with his kids. He loved his kids. He was she said, you know, he was the perfect husband at first, but and you couldn't see, you know, in all the pictures that she's showing us. Okay, so you're seeing Jim at his best, at his smiliest and happiest. She says you cannot tell how evil he is. And then we go into the background of Sheila and Jim's story. So everything we've learned until, you know, where he said he was the perfect husband and father and blah, blah, blah. They actually didn't lead too much like they have in the past. But, yeah, everything like that will circle back around after we get really going with this. So, she said she met Jim at a country bar. I guess country music, country, whatever. She said they hit it off. He was the nicest guy. He, she remembered they were laughing, having drinks, having a good time. And she really liked him. And he called her, you know, shortly after, and they started dating. They'd go to movies, they'd go dancing, they'd go out to eat, just, you know, the normal courtship, right? And she said, you know, she didn't really say how long they dated before he popped the question. But when he popped the question, she gladly said yes. So here she tells us I'm struggling with words today. Words are hard. That she had 3 kids from her previous marriage. So, and she was wanting to find somebody that would be the perfect father for them. So I'm getting the idea that the father wasn't in the picture. And she thought Jim would be that. She thought he would be the perfect father for her kids. So they got married. And a year after they got married, they had their first child together. A year after that, they had twins. So, if you're counting, because I wasn't counting, and later in the show it says she had 6 kids, and I went, what? So, yeah. So now they've got 6 kids. And she tells us that Jim was the main breadwinner in the family. She worked, but he was a truck driver, and he brought in the majority of the money for the family. But with 6 kids and so on and so forth, it was tough. It was hard. I mean, I know what she's talking about. My stepfather was a truck driver. There was only 3 of us with my mother, and times were really rough sometimes. Trucking can be either really great pay or seasonal or, you know, whatever. So anyways, they had it rough at times. Not always, at times. And she said her parents, who adored the grandkids, right, would at times go out and buy gifts for them, for the kids, you know, whether it be clothes or whatever. And she said, you know, this really helped them. So they really, you know, it really helped them. But Jim did not like this. So if you're asking me, this probably should have been the first warning something was wrong. And honestly, I don't know, because this is just the first time she's telling us that something's wrong, that what's happening. There could have been incidents before that I don't know about. So I can only judge that this incident happened. So one day he come home, and his schedule, I forgot to mention, he worked through the week except for Wednesdays. He had Wednesdays off and he had weekends off, which as a truck driver, it's pretty amazing. Yeah, there was times I didn't see my stepfather for a month or longer, long haul driving. So, you know, there's that. So he come home one day, and she was actually on the phone with her mother, thanking her for the latest gifts. She had just received some clothing, and I don't know if they were shipped to her, mailed to her. There was no indication of where they lived versus where parents lived, and so on and so forth. So I just have to guess here. It shows the reenactment of her sitting at the table with all these packages and clothes sitting around her, and she is on the phone with her mother thanking her for the gifts and how they really help. Things have been tough, blah, blah, blah. So Jim comes in, and he's not happy. And I can't get comfortable. I'm sorry. He's not happy, and he's like, give me the phone. Of course, this is reenactment. She's also talking. Sheila's also talking, but you're seeing the reenactment, and the reenactment's like, well, I'm on the phone with my mom. Hold on. And he's like, no, give me the phone now. So very dramatic. And as Sheila's telling the story, you know, he did demand the phone. And she was so taken aback by the fact that he yelled and demanded the phone that she gave it to him. And he got on the phone with her mom and told her, what was it? Not to ever buy anything else for his kids, that they didn't need her help, not to talk to, she was not to see her grandkids, not to see her daughter, not to see him, not to come around anymore. That if the kids deserved something, or if he thought the kids deserved something, he'd buy it for them. So, yeah, I'm like, to me, this would be all kinds of warning flags. Someone spoke to my mom like that, you could forget it. Literally, you could forget it. So, you know, he hung up and walked away, according to the reenactment. And she said that she was very angry about this. You know, that was his mother that he just talked to like that. And these were her grandkids. And if they wanted to buy something for them, then, you know, they should be able to. But Sheila did not say that she actually talked to Jim about it, or said those words to Jim. She said that's just what she thought at the moment, because she was pissed at what he had done, which she should be. That was uncalled for. So then she makes this comment that I'm like, that kind of came out of the blue. She said she chalked up Jim's outburst to his frustration from working long hours and being away from the family. But that's the first outburst that she has mentioned. So I'm like, okay, is there more that you have not told us? Or are they rearranging the story to fit, you know, time limits or what they feel is important? I don't know, but I felt like we were missing something, because if she's already chalking up, you know, these outbursts and excusing it, then this was not the first. So, we go back to Sheila, and we're seeing more pictures of Jim and the family and his semi-truck. So we're seeing him in his work truck. He's holding one of the kids. Of course, you know, kids are blurred out except for one that becomes a pivotal part of the story. We don't really learn anything about the kids. And in my typical fashion, I did not Google or search for the kids, because they deserve their privacy in the peace for living with somebody or having a father like they had. So, yeah. So she's telling us that because of his work schedule, he was gone. This is when we learn of his, you know, he's gone every day but Wednesday and the weekends. And when he was home, so she said that when he was gone, she missed him. Okay, it's your husband, you should miss him. And she said, but they would talk on the phone every night, but he would only talk for a few minutes and then be done and hang up. But it was every night. So she did have conversations with him every night. And, you know, able to keep up. He'd ask how the kids were doing and how she was doing, how her work day was, so on and so forth. Which it never said what she did for a living, but that she did work. So, then one day, she come in, and again, this is kind of scattered in the order of things. So if you're confused, believe me, during this I was too. But he come home one day, or no, she was home one day, and she tried to use the phone, and it was off. He had purposely not paid the bill. So when she asked him about it, he's like, well, you don't need the phone. What was it he said? You don't need to communicate with anybody else. But that means you're not communicating with each other like you have been when you're on the road. So, but yeah, she said, you know, she thought he had canceled it because when Jim was gone, she had friends and they would talk on the phone or come over to her house and just hang out, and he did not like that. He did not want her hanging out or talking to anybody besides him, and he was working to isolate her from doing that. Okay. I'm telling you. Piece of garbage, right? Right. Now, So during her isolation, because, you know, she was home all day, couldn't talk to anybody, I'm kind of confused, but how does he stop you from talking to somebody when he's gone? So she mentions that she's friends with the neighbors, and why can you still not go outside and talk to the neighbors? I mean, there's something completely off about this whole scenario that I'm not getting. And that's okay. I'll figure it out. Actually, I never did figure it out. I say that, but no, I never figured out why or how his control of her really extended while he was gone. But so she said during her isolation, you know, because she's home with the kids, she can't talk to anybody, she doesn't go anywhere. She starts wondering about what he's doing on the road, because he never wanted to talk about his job. He never wanted to talk about the places he'd been, because apparently on the as a driver he went north and south, east to west, so he was pretty much everywhere in the continental United States that required a delivery of some sort. That was him. He did it. End of story. And that is literally how it is. You don't really get a say-so about where you go. You can ask to rearrange and change your schedule depending on what your schedule is. So if you've got a planned vacation, or if you have a doctor's appointment, or if you have something you need to be in a certain location, obviously they're going to help you reschedule. Otherwise, you pretty much go where they tell you, right? And I am really putting off using this glitter again because I made such a mess last time. But we're going for it. She was pretty suspicious of what he did on the road because he never talked about it. And she felt like when he was on the road, he had a whole nother life. Okay. That blows my mind, because if I felt like my husband had a whole nother life while he was on the road, I mean, or while he was at work, I would be suspicious and not happy and so on and so forth. But apparently she wasn't. So she said usually when Jim came home, he spent a lot of time in his shed. So he started spending a lot of time in the shed. She never went into it. She never knew anything about it. She thought, well, that's his little man cave. That's okay. I don't need to know what it is. I've got the kids. I got the house. I'm going to clean, you know, take care of my house with my kids while he can go rest while he's not on the road. But she had no idea what was in that shed. So then Sheila comes back and she tells us the story of one time he come home from work. He dropped his bag as usual and went to take a shower as usual. There was really nothing unusual about any of that. But she was doing laundry that day and decided to grab his clothes out of the bag so she could throw them in. And when she did, she found a box, and it was funny because it wasn't a little packet thing that you see at your store with the, you know, roll or they fall out. No, it was a box of condoms. And she's like, okay, it's not funny. But the way it was described, I'm like, okay. So, she became suspicious. She became upset. She asked him about it. And he said, oh, those aren't mine. Now, I'm just going to tell you, his excuses are just ridiculously out of this world. And I hope that she doesn't believe him, but I wasn't really quite sure. So she's like, what do you mean they're not yours? They're in your bag, right? Typical, good question. But he's like, no, I'm just holding them for a friend. Okay. Holding them for a friend. You know, there are teenagers that come up with better excuses when caught. Hey, look at that. Okay, she said she was sure something was going on. She didn't quite believe him, but she convinced herself, nah, he wouldn't do that. He loves us, and he must be holding those for a friend. She said, I'm just being paranoid. Okay. Yeah. You have pretty good reason to be paranoid, lady. You do. He's cheating on you. She thought he was seeing somebody when he was on the road, but she wanted to believe everything was okay, and she never questioned him again. Okay. I guess I'm not that type of person. I mean, I'm like, anybody knows me knows that I would not put up with something like that. So one day, this is sad and hilarious, and if finding the condoms wouldn't have convinced me to leave if he was my husband, this would have. So one day her daughter, and she didn't say which one, actually she did, but I didn't write it down because I didn't think I was adding the children at this point. But one day her daughter called, completely just hysterical and upset. She had found a video tape, this is a VHS tape, on her parents' headboard and decided to watch it. So first off, yeah, don't ever watch a video that's on a headboard that's not clearly marked. And yeah, I know what I'm talking about. I've not personally done this, but seriously know somebody that has. And so the daughter's calling, and she's just like, I can't believe you would do that. I can't believe you would do that on the tape and record it and blah, blah, blah. And poor Sheila had no idea what she's talking about. She's like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? So the daughter proceeds to tell her what she saw in this video. Sheila's like, okay, back up. Put that back where you found it. I will look at it when I get home from work. Yeah. Okay. Mind is completely 100% blown here. But yeah, let's just do that. So she says when she gets home, she pulls the video out and she watches it. And no surprise here, guys, right? It's a sex tape. But it is not a sex tape of her and her husband. It's a sex tape of her husband and her friend. Or I would hope at this point, her ex-friend. And yeah, Jim just created this video and left it in the bedroom on top of the headboard. And the daughter found it. No Bubba. He's already gone. But, so she confronts him with it. What is this? What are you doing? I can't believe you would do that. And whatever else you would say. For me, there would be a whole lot of smacking, fighting, fisting, and whatnot. But she doesn't say she hit him or anything. Probably a good thing she didn't. I don't know. I don't know what I would do in that situation. I know what I like to say I would do. Actually, I do know what I would do in that situation, but that's another time. And this is not my truth. This is Sheila's. So, he tells her, well, that's not me. The hell do you mean it's not you? It's a sex tape of you and Sheila's friend. And I am very sad to say that they showed part of it on this episode. And it wasn't anything that you're going to see. You just saw two people and their faces were blurred out. So I don't know why they even bothered showing it. But, and they're still clothed, but they're clearly leading up to the no, you know, when you're married and that's you're your friend's husband. So, yeah, he said, that's not me. I don't know what you're talking about. She said she was devastated. Okay, and honestly, wouldn't we all be? Wouldn't we? So she asked him, you know, how stupid do you think I am? I don't know. Did he answer her? She said she should have cut her losses at that point. She knew there was a problem in the marriage. She should have got out. But she didn't. She wanted that perfect family. She wanted, like, you know, things to be like they were at the beginning of their marriage when things were good and he was a good father and a good husband. She still had hope that they could have that. But that was just the beginning of the end or the downfall for them, right? So, that's just, whew. So after she confronted him about this tape, he started getting very angry. And his temper was showing. And I think this is, other than the phone incident, and I have to believe that, yes, there probably were more incidents, but they're not telling us. But after the phone incident, this is the first time she's mentioned a temper or that he's done something that should have raised some flags and, you know, made a sane woman leave. But, and I shouldn't say that. I should not call her or say a sane woman. You know, each of us have our reasons for doing what we do, and I apologize. I did not mean any harm, and I was just talking because I can't understand. But, you know, I don't have to understand everybody. I don't. But I do struggle a lot with abuse situations because I honestly have not been in their shoes. But I'm like, how do you live like that? And how do you live knowing that, okay, not knowing because you've convinced yourself that he's not cheating on you, but all the signs are right there, and you're convincing yourself that they're not. And anyways, so I do again want to say I'm sorry. I don't mean to offend anybody. And we all struggle with different aspects of other people's life, but I'm not here to judge it, so I shouldn't have judged it. So we'll get back to the story. Sheila says that one day they got into a fight. Apparently they were fighting a lot, but this time they were fighting and the kids were shown to be in the kitchen and they heard this awful fight. So that really breaks my heart. But Jim started calling Sheila fat and ugly. He called her a whore. What a stupid. He was just belittling her and saying these awful things. And I'm just like, my heart broke for her in front of her kids that she's having to put up with this, right? So I really have to figure out my space in this new thing I've got going on. She said it got so bad that she just really didn't even want to be in the same house as him. And I just breaks my heart. Anyways. This is where she circles back and talks about him being two different people. And when he was good, he was really good. But when he was bad, it was terrifyingly, is that a word? It was terrifyingly bad. Okay. So one day Jim got mad at her and they got into another fight. And she was yelling back. She says, I always fought back. Good for you. But said that this was the first time he physically smacked her. So I'm like, what? So yeah, he physically hit her, knocked her to the, well, he knocked her back over a chair, and she fell. And she said, you know, at that point I realized me fighting back is not going to help the situation. So she said, I laid there. I sat there and didn't move and let him calm down. She said after that, though, she knew there would be violent, and he was becoming a monster. It was just over time he was turning into a monster. She was scared of him when he was home, and really it became unbearable in their house. And you just got to remember there's 6 kids, and I know there's young ones, but I don't really know their age. I know the 3 older ones by the reenactment videos and by the stories that we're going to hear here soon. One of them was, or the 2 girls, there's 2 girls of the 3, and they were both teenagers. So, she said she didn't know what to do. She didn't know what she was going to do. She knew it wasn't good. She knew things were getting worse, but she had 6 kids. Where was she going to go? He had isolated her. This is when she said, you know, I had 6 kids. And I'm like, what? Where did that come from? So, yeah, I didn't do the math at the beginning when she was talking about her previous kids and then the child a year after they were married and then the twins 2 years after they were married. So, all right. She said, you know, she knew he was violent. He had smacked her, but she didn't think he would harm anybody. And, you know, that kind of justification just hurts my heart. Just hurts my heart. She thought that his affair that she was convinced he was having on the road and his temper were the only 2 things that he was trying to hide from the world. Unfortunately, that is not the case. And so now we get to talk about the oldest daughter. And like I said, typically when I do these shows, I don't like to talk about the children or mention their names, but she does. She brings in her daughter from her first marriage, and she said Jim hated Jenny. So we know Jenny is the daughter. And I'm going to tell you, when I was learning up, because they started showing pictures of Jenny and they started talking about incidents where Jenny and Jim fought all the time. I mean, like, they hated each other type of fight. I was really, really concerned, you know, because it's never good when they start showing pictures like that and you don't actually see a real live or updated version of that. So I want to say I went into this whole section very scared of what had happened to Jenny. But I'm kind of going ahead there because, you know, they clashed, they fought nonstop, and it was really, really bad. And, you know, Sheila said she would try to break it up, get in between it. She said it was, okay, so she never mentions if Jim ever got violent with the kids. I don't know. So I'm going to assume he did not. But it does say that, you know, he and Jenny fought every day that he was home and non-stop. And it could be about anything. And Jim was very awful to this child. She's a teenager, but still she's a child. And he's calling her names. He's just something no parental figure, any adult should do to a kid. But he did. And she had enough and called Child Protective Services. And at this point, I'm like, yes, go girl. That's the way you do it. And I was like really hopeful this might be the downslide to this story, and it wasn't, because when they showed up, and it's like Bowie said, it wasn't. So Child Protective Services showed up, and Jim convinced them that everything was okay and there was no problem. So they left and they never came back. See my blue lashes? I can't see the blue lashes. I want you to see my blue lashes. Which is just heartbreaking. They had a chance to do something and it wasn't done. And I would have thought, I don't know much about Child Protective Services. I don't. Never had to call them on my family. And a big thank God my kids never felt they had to call them on me. I don't know how it works. I don't know what the criteria is. I just don't know. But I would have thought they would have come back to check on them after the initial call. And they never came back. Sheila says, you know, Jim was furious, which I can imagine he was. But she never said he did anything or, you know, reacted or, I don't know. I guess I was thinking he would react to that badly, but she never said he did. However, she said, in a turn of events that shocked them all, he started bringing home little trinkets and gifts for the kids. When he was on the road, he'd come in and he would have things like bracelets and jewelry and clothing and just things like that that he would give her, or give them, not just her. And it became a normal thing for him when he would come home. He would have this stuff. And she said, you know, it really, I hate using my fingers like this. So she said, you know, she was glad. Maybe he had decided to turn a page. Maybe he was not going to be so angry anymore at the kids or whatever. But she said whatever it was, she was happy it was that way. And she started bringing home these gifts. And he would do it every time he was out. Said one day he brought Jenny, the girl that he fights with all the time, a cassette recorder. And said he had found it and thought she would really enjoy it. So this is kind of creepy, okay? I'm just going to say. Sheila says at this time she's noticing, well, okay, before, let me back up a little bit. He brought her this recorder, and Sheila says she noticed that all the gifts he was bringing never were boxed. So they were never packaged. They were just, you know, like, here's some earrings type of thing, right? So she asked him about the recorder when he brought it. And he said, oh, I just found it and thought she would like it. Okay. In this recorder was a cassette tape. And Jenny listened to it. And it was basically today's version of YouTube where, hey, my name is Dawn and blah, blah, blah. So this girl named Dawn is on this video. And she's talking and she's giving her life update. I've been living at this wayward house and they just don't understand me, so I left. I ran away. I'm on my own. She said, I can make it. I have no problem. I won't have any problems. She said, and then she starts talking about this man she met at a truck stop that had, what was it? Meeting a guy at a truck stop, said he had the dreamiest eyes. So, yeah, that's just kind of weird, right? Am I the only one that thought that was weird before learning the whole story? Yeah, I hope not. So if that's not weird enough, which, yeah, I think it's weird, he come back one day with the gift of the other daughter, which she was also a teenager, and it was a book on how to murder somebody and get away with it. Yeah, she was like, oh, that was just a weird gift to give. No, that's worse than weird. That's, what the fuck weird, right? I mean, am I the only one that thinks that? Okay. So, Sheila then starts to tell us that not only was he giving weird gifts, and out of the blue, he started making comments that she found odd. They were odd. So, one comment, she said they were on their way to Lake Erie. Okay, so this is the first time we get an actual area that they live in. We don't know yet where, but we have an area. And they were, I guess, going on vacation, and they pulled over at a truck stop or a rest area to get some coffee or get something to drink and stretch their legs. And she said beside this rest area is a lake. Okay. She said they were standing out there just looking at the lake and, you know, stretching their legs and enjoying the nice day, she said. And he come over and he's like, oh man, this would be a perfect spot to throw a body and get rid of someone if you wanted to. So, I mean, so yeah, here's my thing. Okay, my husband and I would probably say something like that to each other. Like, oh, that'd be a great place to, I just got that all over me, to get rid of your body, you know. But for one, I would know he was joking, and for two, he's never abused me. Okay? So, yeah. She thought he was joking. I could take that. Except for the fact he has been abusive. And you're thinking he's weird and doing stuff, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, but my radar is like all over the place, and I'm thinking, I don't know. Okay, so that was really it. I mean, about that story. She's just like, yeah, I laughed it off, told him he was crazy. I don't know, guys. I mean, okay, so yeah, I have the advantage of knowing the story and know what's going on, and she was living it in the moment. So I should shut up and just go ahead and tell the story. So there's another time that he come home, and she could tell he was a little agitated. And she's like, hey, what's going on? What happened at work? Or was everything okay at work? And he's telling her no. She said they're being harassed at work. Said the cops come in and he had to do a DNA test. She's like, what do you mean had to do a DNA test? What happened? He's like, oh, I don't know what happened. She said, but something happened with this truck, and I'm one of the drivers of the truck, so I had to give a DNA test. Okay. Again, I have foresight of knowing that this isn't right, and she should have been a little bit more concerned than she was, but she said she thought it was odd, you know, but never said anything else about it. You know, I get where we as people, and I'm just as bad about it, is if you ignore it, you hope it goes away. I am just as bad about that. If I don't want to deal with something, you ignore it and go away. I would hope to think some things I would know better than to ignore when I have kids in the house. Anyways. All right. That concealer is so much thicker. So she said after he had to go through that DNA testing, she said he just became more and more violent. And she became more and more afraid. Yeah. I would think so, right? But she said she hated being there with him and with the kids. She said she was scared that he would hurt her or the kids. So it's gotten worse. She's not giving us any indication, but now she's really scared for herself and the kids. So one day he come home from work while Jim come home from work, and no, I'm saying this wrong. She came home from work. Jim was on the road. She was picking up, cleaning, doing something. She said she didn't remember what, but for some reason she decided to check or open up their camera case. Okay? Camera bag. So she said she opened up the camera bag, and inside were the 3 young ones' birth certificates and social security cards. She said not any of the older kids, and she just knew at that moment he was going to try to run with her kids, and she said that was kind of the moment she knew she had to leave. So I'm thinking there's probably more that she's not told us, but at the point, this is what she's told us. She said, I was scared he was going to take my kids and run, and I left first, basically. I really don't care what caused her to leave. I'm just glad she did. So she said she went to the courthouse to get a protection order against him, and they actually set her up in a safe house. So I'm thinking, okay, there's something going on, whatever. But yeah, because you don't just get protective custody like that. There has to be something. And I wish you did when people, or when women, men, whoever put in protective custody, you know, PPOs on their significant other, spouse, or whatever, that they were treated better and taken into custody to hide. Fortunately, that's not the case. So, whatever the reason, like I said, I feel like there's more than what we're being told. But I'm glad. So I'm glad she's in protective custody, because she was really scared about what he would do when he would come home and find them gone. Okay? Okay. So she said, after a couple days, she decided to call her neighbor to tell him that she was okay, her and the kids were okay, that she just couldn't stay anymore and they had to leave. And I don't know if the neighbor was aware of anything going on in their house, but she said she wanted to let them know that they were okay. And the neighbor told her, it was a guy, that she wouldn't have to worry about that anymore. And she's like, what do you mean I don't have to worry about it anymore? And they said the cops came yesterday and arrested Jim. She's like, what? What do you mean? She said, he says yes. SWAT came out, said they had, where's it at? 54 police there to arrest him. And she's like, this has to be a mistake. Why are they arresting him? And he tells her he was arrested for the murder, or that he murdered a young girl. So she was like completely stunned and in shock. She said they didn't have a television in the safe house, so she turned the radio on just to listen to the local, you know, news broadcasters, and then she heard they were talking about finding a girl's body back in March. So I don't know where they're at, but you know, back in March is what she says. And they found her in a snowbank on the side of the interstate. So Jim had been charged with raping and strangling to death a 17-year-old Dawn, remember that name? Birnbaum. Her body had been found dumped on the side of the road in Pennsylvania. So we get more location information. Don't know if that's where they live or if that's just where he dumped her because he was a truck driver. But so far we know Lake Erie, Pennsylvania, so they're in that side of the world. Sheila said it was so disturbing to listen to this when they were talking about Dawn and the signs of struggle and rape, and the rope that he used to strangle her was still around her throat. She said that she really struggled believing he could do something so evil. Okay. So after he was arrested, she went back home, you know, because he wasn't there threatening her, and she can get her kids back to their house. And she said she was able to watch the trial of her husband on TV. So obviously this is a while later, and I think we're kind of skipping some parts, but she said, you know, she went home, she was able to watch the trial, and she said she wanted to believe he was innocent, but when she started thinking about it, or she wanted to think he was innocent, that he wasn't capable of murder, but when she started thinking about it, and you know, the video, the cassette that he had given Jenny of a girl named Dawn talking, and the condoms. So apparently the cops believed Jim had murdered many other women, girls. They were all girls. And because there was a list of missing, or no, they weren't missing. They were found dead on the side of the road the same way Dawn was. So there was a lot of speculation and concern that he had murdered more than Dawn, but he was never charged with anything else. So, okay. Sheila said it was hard to think that someone you lived with and loved could do something like that. After she heard of the evidence, which the prosecution had a ton of evidence against him, including the DNA and the cassette player he gave Jenny, you know, there was a ton of evidence. She started realizing that, yes, he was capable of this. She just never saw that in him. And she couldn't understand what would drive him to murder Dawn. Why was he murdering any of them? But Dawn is who he was caught. So she just couldn't understand. So she said she was watching the trial and they showed a picture of Dawn. I will add a picture of Dawn at the end when we discuss it. And Dawn looks a lot like Jenny. Like, I can see the resemblance, okay? And Sheila wondered if he killed Dawn because he hated Jenny so much. Okay. I'm going to just add my 2 cents. I'm not a forensic person. I'm not a psychiatrist or whatever. I don't even know how to say it, so I'm not one. But I can see he would hate her or kill somebody because he hated her. Someone that looked like her, someone that maybe he was talking to Dawn and got offended and just took his rage out against Jenny, from Jenny against Dawn. Okay, I can see that. It happens all the time. Really no big deal as far as that being, and please don't take that wrong because it's a huge deal, but no big deal as far as it being something that would be so out of the normal that you'd be like, no, that's just unheard of. Unfortunately, it is heard of, and I can see that. So here's my 2 cents. He killed her because he hated Jenny. Did he rape her because he wanted Jenny as much as he hated her? So as far as something like that, it's never touched on. It's never mentioned. I just have to seriously sit and wonder about that as I sit here, and I'm like, could it be? I mean, yeah, I don't know. Again, take that from somebody that just watched way too many shows, Criminal Minds, or that type of show. Just take it what it's worth. I'm not an expert. I don't know. I just have to sit and wonder if he wanted her as much as he hated her. Okay, let's go on. So James Cruz Jr. was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole for the murder of Dawn. Sheila said she was relieved knowing that Jim wasn't going to be around anymore and finally felt safe, which is good. She said she also felt guilty. Said that if she had, you know, stepped in and done something with his rage against Jenny and maybe got him all help, would that have still happened? We don't know. But she said there was guilt because she knew how much he hated Jenny, and she should have stepped in and tried to make it work out or leave. Or she should have just left and got Jenny out of a bad situation and got him out of a situation that ultimately maybe caused him to kill somebody. I don't know. It's a whole lot of maybes, ultimately's, whatever. So, like I said, and I'm not, it's not funny. After the trial, it was suggested that he had murdered many, many more. There was, let's see, let me see if it tells us. More than a dozen similar murders to Dawn. Murders where the girls were strangled and raped and tossed on the side of the road, just like Dawn. And the rope found on many of these, because he left the rope on them, was similar to what they found in Dawn. So, also, all the murders stopped when he was arrested. Very good possibility that he was the ultimate person that did all these. But this was weird to me, and I'm kind of skipping ahead because I do find it very weird. They never pursued that. So when he was convicted and put in jail, it was just for Dawn. They never pursued the other women. And I don't know if they just assumed it was him and went on, or just, you know, they just let it lie, which, like I said, I'll get to it here in a minute. But to me, I'd be like, I'd want to know. I'd want to have that closed. If it's him that's caused all these murders, I'd want to know. I'd want to be able to put these ladies' families to rest and close the book on some unsolved murders, because we all know there's way too many unsolved murders in this world. It's not specified. So let's just go right on. So now Sheila tells us that she thought now that Jim was in jail, the worst was over for her, right? Right. Well, maybe not. So we're just going to go back to something that was mentioned and never brought up. And I knew it would be, but I totally forgot about it myself. So one day, Sheila and her friend had decided they were going to clean out Jim's shed. Yeah, we know this isn't going to be good. And they didn't specify everything that they found. But when they went in, he said the whole back of the shed was full, and she called it stuff. The reenactment showed knives and all kinds of different type of things. But there was all kinds of books on murder and how to get away with it. There was the rope, the same rope that was found that killed Dawn, and honestly all the other women too. And the worst part, they found the stuff to make a bomb. So she said that had she not left, she really feels that he was going to make a bomb to kill her and the older kids and run with his younger ones. So I don't know. I have to assume that she called the cops and let them investigate this shed, right? I mean, that was way too gunky. That would be the honest stuff. But she said Jim was never charged with any other murders. Said that they didn't, the cops, this is what they said, the cops didn't see any other reason to prosecute him for other murders because they had him guilty for Dawn's. And that's when I'm like, that ain't how it works. We want to close off these other poor ladies that are murdered. They're just as important. We need answers. So if you're not going to charge Jim, then there's still somebody out there that potentially could be murdering, right? I was so confused. How do they just say, nope, we're not going to prosecute or pursue this. We got him for Dawn. He's in jail. And that's all that matters to me. Which, yes, it's important that he's in jail. And yes, that it should be the main thing that's that's important, but I would think they'd want some answers. However, I don't know. I just don't know. I'm confused. Okay, I got glitter everywhere. Now we're going to get into Mr. Google. And the first thing that popped up when I Googled Jim is that it's a site for missing people, and it's really quite interesting. And there was a story. And I'm sorry, I'm making all kinds of noise. It takes me to a section that is titled Serial Killer James Cruz Jr. and Spring Dawn. This site looks to be dedicated to a lady named Brenda Condon, who, I thought my teeth were all pink. Sorry, who went missing, and there's assumptions that Jim killed her as well. So this looks to be to discuss the murder and give us more. Okay, so this looks to be the site to discuss this murder of Dawn and give us more information on her. So I'm going to insert 2 pictures right now of Dawn. So this is what we know about Dawn. March 22nd, 1993, Dawn was 17 years old and ran away from the Elin School in Poland Spring, Maine. She was picked up by a truck driver, James Cruz Jr. The next day, March 23rd, Jim murdered Birnbaum and dumped her half-clothed body on a snowbank on a northbound ramp off of State Route 26 in Spring Township. So Birnbaum remained unidentified for a time, and the town started calling her Spring Dawn. This site looks to be a petition to get Cruz Jr. investigated for the Brenda Condon murder. That was apparently the same MO, the same thing. She was dumped in basically the same place. They were like a couple miles from each other where they were dumped. But I don't see an date on the article, so I don't know when the article was wrote, if it's still active, or if anything was ever done on it. So then I do again the Google, and it says, this is very disturbing to me. It says, the killer of Dawn Marie Birnbaum could be released on a technicality. This was dated in 2020. So, yeah. It states there is fear he could get a new trial due to an FBI scandal linked to microscopic hair evidence. He's been in prison for 21 years, and when in 2015, the FBI issued a startling press release regarding flaws in forensic hair matching technology and potential wrongful imprisonments. The investigation an investigation has been launched. It has been one of the FBI's biggest forensic scandals, and the FBI admitted that testimony provided by its analyst concerning hair analysis could be erroneous. So upon learning this information, Cruz immediately filed for a fresh appeal, of course, because he had appealed before, but he had appealed once before, and it got shot down. He never appealed again, so he still had appeals left. Prosecutor also filed they filed their own appeal as well, pointing out that more than just hair evidence was used to convict Cruz, and they had a ton of evidence. But this whole scandal could be enough to grant him a new trial. So there's nothing since this information on 2020, and we all know that it takes years to get things moving through the system. So I haven't seen anything new, and I wish there was more updates. I wish I knew how that was going to handle, because it's really sad to me that, a convicted murderer who I do believe did this could be set free on a technicality or an error, which we're all human, but you would like to think would not happen, but it did. So anyways, give me your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think, and if you see anything that I missed on this new appeal and new trial for Jim. Hopefully it doesn't change anything. The other evidence that was used will be enough to keep him in jail for life, and Sheila and her kids will never have to deal with him again. So, thank you for watching. I hope you liked the video. Please like and share. Don't forget to subscribe down below. That means the world to me as I'm trying to get this up and going and find my footing in this world. Comments, thoughts, all that is appreciated. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. Goodbye.